Well, folks, it's time. The Switch 2 is out, it's in me and Hyder's hands, and we have played a lot of Mario Kart World. I could rave and rave about how fun this game's been. The open world has been a huge blast to explore and free roam, the soundtrack is filled to the brim with incredible remixes and new songs alike, and most importantly for me, this roster is absolutely stellar. I know some people are disappointed in losing the third-party stuff and the lack of Kongs is a bit peculiar, but if you're going for a purely Mario Kart roster, I don't think you can do much better than this character selection. Maybe bring back the Koopalings. Ironically, it does feel weird that they're gone now, but I have very few complaints overall. Shout out to my man Coincoffer, by the way, the only dude to convince me to put Waluigi on the shelf in like 20 years. I want to feed him so many quarters. That being said, you can read a title. Probably. I mean, maybe you're illiterate, thanks for coming either way, but we're not really doing the usual format today. You need a full review? It's been a bit now, and it's got some hiccups and bullet-related foot wounds, but the game's great. Not $80 amazing, but regardless, I think going over the entire game here isn't really the answer. But I want to talk about this game still. I've been looking forward to this one since January, so why don't we focus on the main selling point of a kart racer instead? The open world secrets will someday dry up, and when that happens, you're going to be relying on the courses to keep you engaged. So hey, why not rank them and see which tracks are front runners and which spun out 2 laps ago? That's right, every Mario Kart World track ranked. Kinda. Given that Grand Prix has the intermission segments on tracks now, and the presence of Knockout Tour's do-or-die design mentality fundamentally shifts the question of what exactly is a course there, I think that saying I feel the same way about them in that mode as I do in a normal 3-lap race just wouldn't be very honest. We gotta change things up a bit, and so I did the obvious. I cut out like 70% of the game. For this video, I'm just covering the standard versus racetracks. No intermissions, no in-betweens, just the courses as God intended. I'm not as pessimistic about these intermissions as some are. I think they definitely have some merit, but most just don't have the memorability of something like a Boo Cinema and would clutter the bottom of the ranking with a lot of unnecessary fluff. Oh, and if you couldn't guess, I'm some dumb fat ass on the internet. Not only are my opinions entirely my own, you're working with the thought process of someone who isn't amazing at Mario Kart World. There's some crazy tech in this game, and I think that's awesome, but the odds of me getting good enough to do half of it is slim. With that all said and done, it's time to bitch. The biggest hurdle with writing the script for a video like this really is starting off so negatively. We've got some of the greatest tracks in series history down the road. Hell, this game has barely anything in the way of bad courses in it. Unfortunately, I don't think anything's gonna help Peach Stadium catch up to the pack. What? No, I'm sorry. Not that Peach Stadium. This Peach Stadium. I'm calling this one the parking lot. And let me ask you, in a game this whimsical with all sorts of fantastical racing infrastructure, including the exact place you're in right now, how fun does driving underneath all of that in a concrete rectangle for 1 lap sound? Because that's what this track is. I also recognize the kind of confusing situation with this track in particular. You can't access the parking lot by just selecting Peach Stadium normally. Not on Versus races or anywhere else really, it's just in the Grand Prix. In order to race on this otherwise, you have to start from a different track and go to Peach Stadium from there, which will leave you in the exact same spot as Grand Prix anyway. 1 lap on a short rectangle and you're done. This track doesn't really follow the rules I laid out, but it felt odd cutting this when it gets treated as a unique course by the game itself. It's in the Grand Prix, it feels wrong not having it here, but I really did consider cutting it. You may be wondering about a certain other course in that case. Don't worry, I'll explain when we get there. Even with me working around the weirdness of this, it's not exactly doing itself any favors by existing anyway. As I said, this course has a whopping 1 lap around the underside parking area of the stadium above it, filled with little in the way of meaningful obstacles and just a couple of item boxes. All of it being over before you really get a chance to soak anything in. I'm not one to rag on a simple course just for being simple. I love Baby Park, and as you'll see much later into this list, some of the simpler courses of this game definitely won me over, but they all have something that the parking lot doesn't. Laps. The fun of something like this is in the chaos of scrambling to catch up to first on a track that's short but easily maneuvered with good item usage. But if you only have 1 trip around the block, that actively prevents that sort of gameplay from really happening. If you're up ahead, you're a part of a small clique of people that realistically has a chance of taking the race. And if you're trailing behind, well, the odds of there being anything to do to change that are extremely small small if you didn't bring some insane stuff in with you. Best of luck next time! The journey of the track is fine enough, but positioning this as the reward of your adventure over here when there's a significantly better track right above it is insane. It's like if you spent the whole day getting to your grandma's house as a kid, and instead of her being excited to see you, she just starts throwing bricks at your head. Even if there was a 3-lap variant, I'm not sure how much higher it would really get. It kinda emulates Baby Park, I guess, but even then, it's still a visually uninteresting knockoff of a much better track. As it is, it's just terrible. Well, now that we're done with Parking Lot Stadium, we're on to the actual 30 tracks accessible in Versus mode without an asterisk, alongside a significant boost in quality. That being said, I don't care for what they've done to Choco Mountain and Mario Kart World at all. This track is designed for this game like an orphan pheasant is designed for consumption. I guess it works, but it's pretty upsetting. I wasn't playing a ton of Mario Kart 64 as a kid. We were a Double Dash household, thank you, but Choco Mountain is one of those 64 tracks that just has a vibe to it, man. The little underground passage that kind of looks like a face, the dense fog that makes you feel like you're insanely high up, the big lake turn with tumbling boulders. I'm not sure I'd say it's really one of the better tracks from that game, but there's something so distinctive about it despite being like 85% brown that makes me really like it. Mario Kart World took a look at that atmospheric mountain pass and thought it needed to be a monster truck rally, I guess, kinda? Let me start there. I don't like the theming here whatsoever. It's the only course in the entire game where it doesn't really feel obvious while you're racing on it what it's actually supposed to be. Like, yes, this place has Charge and Chuck monster trucks plastered on various signs around the map, but even after playing this thing a couple dozen times, I genuinely thought this was supposed to be an oil drilling facility. Like, look at all these pipelines connected to fountains that are spewing chocolate? I guess that's what it's supposed to be, but god, it looks nasty. They're all over the course too, and way easier to notice in the heat of the moment than what's being displayed on a random sign, which just makes the whole place feel so confused about what it wants to be. The monster truck theming is so skin deep, man. Just putting it on flags and trying to make us just trust that this is what it's supposed to be feels so poor from a game that's generally pretty great with this stuff. It also causes the track to lose all feeling of being Choco Mountain. The foggy passage among the mountain range is dead. Instead, you end up either being in wide open space as you wind around the singular central mountain, or otherwise stuck in a long underpass portion before you get to the lake that's now just a pile of sludge sitting at the bottom, and it's all just so dull. The mountain being so industrialized also leads to the boulders that drop during the lake portion feeling so out of place? Like, where are these coming from? Are the Chucks dropping these on us? Why? It's all so weirdly incongruent. It's like they had the idea for a monster truck rally course, looked over their list of retro tracks they were making, realized that there was only one option left, and just kinda tried to jam them together, and it does not fit. Oh god, I haven't even talked about driving on this track, really, I'm sorry. Okay, so like, imagine if instead of the small, tight corridors that Choco Mountain originally had, you had these wide-ass roads that very occasionally pinch off into thinner segments, and surrounded all by just mud. Driving on this track doesn't feel particularly challenging or fun, and it doesn't really take great advantage of wall riding or rail grinding either. There's this spot in the underpass that I'm not really convinced is faster to utilize, and as you're nearing the end of the lap, there's this pipeline to grind on that leads you to the top of a billboard you can jump off of, except I'm like 99% sure it's way slower. In pretty much every regard I care about, I think this is a butchered attempt at a new spin on this course. This chocolate ain't sweet. It's just nasty. One thing you'll notice about the early portions of my rankings here is that the retro courses dominate the lower rankings for a while. I was pretty surprised as I was going over everything to discover this myself, because for the most part, I think this retro selection ends up pretty good, even if it skips a lot of fan favorites from throughout the series. A lot of these older tracks benefit from the rail grinding and wall riding mechanics of World, as they add new spice and interest to the familiar routes. I think my main issue overall is just that for some of these lower ones, they don't actually do much to make the track more interesting, or they're downright worse like in the case of Choco Mountain. But then there's one track that has so little change that it begs the question, why is Moo Moo Meadows here? I mean, yes, they wanted the cow was very important, obviously it was really cool to have it, but Moo Moo Meadows was already a pretty bland course overall in both Wii and 8, and World's solution to that was to remove the ramp from this hilly section, add a different one over here? That's kind of it for changes. I mean, outside of accommodating for 24 racers, I can't think of much else new about this track. It's a very weird inclusion here, because it's just so boring. It's not even like it would take much to add some intrigue here. Put a tractor somewhere that you can bounce off of or something. Just like anything. I don't necessarily think this track is bad, but it's just so dull and full of missed potential in a game that's teeming with creativity. It's also been in every home console version of Mario Kart for nearly 20 years, and I think it's time that it gets put out to pasture. Yes, Mario Kart Wii is nearly 20 years old. We're all gonna decompose soon, don't worry. I've seen some people suggest that we bring back Moo Moo Farm, and it's not exactly interesting either, but frankly, I would have been much more inviting of getting a remake of that than seeing arguably the least interesting take on Meadows yet. Thankfully, this is also the last track in the game I'd actively prefer not to race on if possible, so from here on out, we're on to much bigger and better things. Being just okay is bigger and better than subpar, right? Now, for clarity's sake, I've touched Mario Kart DS's track selection through DS twice in my entire life. It's not a game I owned as a kid, so I'm not particularly familiar with it, but I will say that I'm generally aware that Desert Hills isn't exactly a fan favorite. So, with all the power in the world at their fingertips to fix that, Nintendo, gutted the hills? I promise we're getting to the good stuff. While the decision making to get here was dubious, Desert's actually enjoyable. I really like this big windy set of curves at the start, especially as the race goes on and the Toko Tokos start running along the path. I think the drifting on this part just feels really good. Then you go into the sandpit section, do a couple tricks off the dunes, and head into another set of twisty turns that are once again pretty fun to drift through. Or you can just completely cut through it if you have the mushrooms to handle it. There's also this glider pad up here, but it's so out of the way to make this turn instead of either of the other two below it, and it's also kind of slow, and it sucks, and it's stupid, and I kind of hate it. And then the lap ends. This track is short, but also just kind of perfectly fine. Hard to really hate Desert with how utterly inoffensive most of it is, but it also does absolutely nothing to get super excited over. It's the C student of Mario Kart World. It shows up, does just enough for me to have fun on it, and leaves without putting in an ounce more effort than it has to. And for being 28th, I can accept that. When I had started writing this video, I had Wario Shipyard a decent bit higher, about 23 or so, but the more I've played it, the less fond of it I've grown. Not enough to call it a bad map, but it's one that I found increasingly less fun on replay. This is the first track we've talked about where riding on water is relevant, and while I prefer the underwater driving of 7 and 8, I don't mind the change too much usually. Well, besides Wario Shipyard. Mario Kart 7 isn't a game I care too much about. We're more like co-workers in different departments that crack jokes in the break room than friends, but much like any reasonable man, if they offer me a Wario Shipyard or two, I will be going there straight after work. The vibrant colors, riding underwater through sunken ships, the personality of this track is damn good. But World goes for a more realistic take on it? Is that right to say? The colors are all muted since it's going for a much more grim tone, which isn't a negative necessarily. I do like the imposing storms and turbulent seas going on here. The actual problem is the amount of time you spend driving on sunken ships has gone down dramatically, and in turn the driving itself is just not particularly fun anymore. It's mostly water and some scant stone segments here and there, except for this portion near the end where you actually get to be on a ship for about 5 seconds before being dunked back into the sea. And I don't get why. I mean, I'm not here to go on a guided tour of where all the pirates fucking died. I'm here to do some sick Mario Kart shit all over their final resting place, alright? And speaking of tricks and the sea and why I'm not big on Wario Shipyard and that weird fling I had with my coworker, maybe not that one actually, where was I going with? Because this track is mostly on rocky waters, there's two things I really don't love here. It's slow, since water in Mario Kart World is inherently slower terrain, and it also asks you to constantly be tricking to not feel like a big fat sack of ass. And since you can't just be tricking the whole time, the ass is coming. The track does feature several ways to get out of the water, namely these curves along the outside of several of the turns and some small rail and wall offerings, but even then you will have to engage with water for most of your runtime, and it drags down the course big time for me. With all the negativity, you're probably wondering why it's not below Desert, and the answer is pretty simple. It's at least trying. There are interesting things you could do on this course, like ride up this wall on the boat to go above the cannon, or this pipe along this rock to skip some of the water during the pre-ship section. Even if I'm not big on the main part of the course, I think the theming and smaller additions at least offer something of merit that puts it above the few below it. It's middling, but I can at least give it that much. We're finally out of what I consider the bland to bad tracks. An exciting prospect if you're someone looking to enjoy their Mario Kart World, but admittedly daunting for me when I now have to rank 26 tracks that I have way less problems with. Thankfully, Sky High Sunday is still here, and even if I like it in World, it's still by and large Sky High Sunday, and that's just not very exciting. I've never been as low on this course as a lot of people are, but it is still like an oval. All the same, this is the best spin on this oval so far, easily. For starters, this layout has been massively overhauled for the better. I love what rail grinding and wall riding does to this track, since it takes the course from being a trick spam snoozer to something with a lot of interesting moment-to-moment decisions on what route to take. The issue is, a lot of that praise is related to the first half of the track. In the second half, there's technically different routes with the mini oval that has the mushroom shortcut, and the wall ride on the last turn is sick, but like, At the end of the day, there's only so much lipstick you could put on a pig, and brother, this is still some pork-flavored ice cream. I can enjoy getting my grind on, but I'm just decently whelmed by this overall. Our first new course of the ranking, and one that, on first playthrough, I would have been shocked to see this low. Starview Peak is gorgeous, one of the best looking and sounding courses in the entire game, and that's really about the extent of it. This course is sneakily unremarkable to actually drive on. No tricky turns or dangerous decisions to make, it's mostly just a series of wide drifts that gives you the option of a higher or lower path that more or less leads to the same outcome, and that leads you into a water section with a couple of speed rings before having you glide your way back to the finish line. The layout is frankly up there for one of the least interesting at a conceptual level, doing the bare minimum to be a bit more than a circle. Despite that, I do enjoy this course. It's an easy one, with the wide roads and turns not presenting much threat, and that gives plenty of time to drink in the environment. This place is very clearly inspired by the Comet Observatory from Mario Galaxy, and with it being placed so high up among the mountains of the snowy region of Mario Kart World, the views you get from this place are mesmerizing. Coupled that with the Lumas dancing all around, this cozy-ass library behind the starting line, and this water segment just being drop-dead gorgeous, I can give a pass to a lackluster layout. Well, mostly. This still isn't exactly a high placement, but it makes me smile thinking about this place, and that's more than I could say about Wario Shipyard, so I think that justifies the ranking. It's good enough. Now, I'm sure anyone who's played World has been wondering, since Peach's parking deck was included at the start, we're only at 31 tracks, which means I didn't put the second version of Crown City from Grand Prix in here. What's my logic for doing that? Well, it's for the simple reason that I had a lot of hate in my heart for Concrete Cul-de-sac, but genuinely just don't care about the other Crown City variant, so I didn't feel a strong need to separate it. Don't like that? I don't blame you, actually. That is kinda dumb. Crown City was heavily marketed before the game was released, to the point that I figured they had something crazy going on here. And, I don't really see what the big idea was. Thinking about it harder, the decision to include Crown City is kind of weird in general, right? It's a little over a square mile big with a population of only about 400, and while it seems quaint enough, I don't think there's really that much interesting route design going on here. Hell, with this kind of boxy shape with a bunch of cut-ins, I'd assume this was a battle mode track. Why is it even here? Oh shit, wait, this is Ohio. I like racing in Crown City, but this track is heavily carried by this one portion of the course where you're riding above the city. It takes decent advantage of the scope by actually hoisting you onto the rooftops and letting you get above the town for most of it, and I just think it's kinda neat. The rest of it is mostly just driving through a city that I want to describe as bustling, but honestly it's pretty empty overall. A few cars will get in your way, there's a couple of good mushroom shortcuts on the first and third segments, but it's overall just kinda okay throughout. I think that a big city track to show off World's new mechanics and racer count is a great concept. The series has done plenty of cities that I really liked even before we got all these new toys, but here I think there's just not enough going on to really grip me. A few more cars or obstacles on those straightaways would have gone a long way. I do really like this area in free roam, but the issue here is that we're not ranking these on me screwing off, it's racing. And as far as racing goes, I just don't have a lot more to say. Is it good? Yeah, it's just acceptably good. Man, I'm so good at this. The game says this is Peach Beach, and that first lap definitely seems to fit the Peach Beach bill, but this isn't Double Dash Peach Beach. This is, for all intents and purposes, a new course that Peach Beach was stapled to. I actually didn't mind this at first, but on each consecutive replay I find myself increasingly annoyed by this decision. The first lap is the traditional Peach Beach, and if it were all this, I'd be throwing this a lot higher. It's still largely the good old ride down from the plaza to the beach, dodging the cataquacks and then looping back up. This part is just as solid as ever, but then after getting back up to the plaza, you're instead sent on a ramp into Peach's Resort. And it's at this point that I think things start coming apart. The second segment is a lot of straight paths that try to create intrigue by giving you all sorts of stairways and rails to choose from. While variety isn't something I'd ever expect to knock a course for giving out, I don't like when taking what should be the trickier paths feels like an actual detriment. To be clear, the bottom path, just going in damn near a straight line, is a noticeably faster choice. Even faster if you have a mushroom on hand. And that's lame. Why show me me all this cool stuff I could do and then make the best strat be to fall down the stairs with style. This segment is also pretty damn short, ending after just one turn and a staircase up to the third section's glider. And this is when the wheels come off. This blows. I think the glider portion is passable. It's a straight line without that much going for it, but you can get up onto the rooftops of the resort, which sounds cool until you realize getting back down is super slow since you just gotta fall until you hit the sand below. And then there's this boring ass water portion. It's just one turn and then another long ass straightaway where the most you can do is boost off of these platforms or maybe ride up on a short road if you have an item, but overall it's got nothing going for it. I understand that a large part of the original Peach Beach is this long straight road that marks the beginning and ending of the course, but Lord have mercy, what the hell made them think the best idea was to add 3 more long stretches of straight road onto the track? Especially when for 2 of them, engaging with the coolest parts is slower and the third is boring all around. It's ridiculous, and this whole thing is so easily resolved by not tacking on a bunch of new segments to a track that didn't need them. No joke, I'd put Peach Beach alone at like 12. This extra junk being here hurts the map so badly, and it's only safe from free falling any further because I at least get to have a lap of the original good course. I really hope they add a 3-lap version and an update someday. It would immediately make Peach Beach so much better. Not that I'm holding my breath, of course. Okay, so listen, I promise that some of these retro courses aren't at the bottom of the list. Hell, I like Shy Guy Bazaar here, but I think this version is a downgrade from its appearance in 7. The layout isn't particularly different to that of the original. You still run through the bazaar, loop back around town onto these wooden platforms, and then glide across a gap before making it back to the start. In a lot of ways, it's still the same course I really enjoyed from its original outing. But damn it, and I know it's petty, I feel like a lot of luster is lost when this track isn't being played at night. I don't think it negatively affects most courses in the game, but the day-night cycle of Mario Kart World hurts Shy Guy Bazaar big time for me. I think part of Bazaar's visual identity is the lighting it has in the 3DS version, with the lanterns past the starting line guiding you into the well-lit bazaar before eventually escorting you back to shadows on the dim scaffolding and shooting you off over the dark bottomless pit. It injects a lot of charm into it for me. Having it be this beautifully lit sunny day in the desert doesn't do anything. And I know it seems like a ridiculous reason to drop a track if that's the main issue I have, but I swear to God, this damn course never comes up at night for me. Hell, I don't think it does for anyone else either. Check online for footage of Shy Guy Bazaar. You know what I see? Nothing but a bright sunny day. God damn it. The fact that I don't ever get to see this course at a time where I actually find myself liking it visually makes it so much less appealing when it comes up. If I had a reliable way to bring back the nighttime glory days, I'd be slapping this at like 19 maybe. The racing itself is fun, and I think the shortcut opportunities on this track are actually pretty sick. Like this rope near the starting line that lets you skip the bazaar entirely, but this one change that's innocuous everywhere else just kills the vibe of Shy Guy Bazaar so hard for me that I can't get it any higher than 22. I'm like, not sure how I feel about Faraway Oasis. An odd sentiment to start with, I know, kinda defeats the purpose of ranking it if I'm truly that confused about it, but it's weird. I like the track, but I don't feel particularly strong about anything it's doing. I think the first part where you jump the gap and land very specifically on the rope in the center to get some extra speed is neat. I like that the game presents this next part with the water pathway as being the primary route, but gives you 2 different options on the sides to take a land-based one that ends up being a bit faster. The waterfall segment reminds me of Yoshi Falls, but on a track that isn't ass. It's all generally pretty neat. There's no real negatives about Faraway Oasis, but it doesn't do anything that drums up extreme joy in me. I wish there was maybe a bit more emphasis on the wildlife aspect of this. The thumbnail for the track is like, check out our cool-ass elephants and giraffes, bitch. But then they're only just chilling on the sidelines during the river segment of the course, and that's not very fun. There's also like no obstacles at all currently to worry about on this course, so having something like the elephants going to drink out of the water or something would make the track way more interesting. I don't know. It's doing everything right enough for me to have it here, but the lack of ambition keeps it from going much higher. I might die for this one. Toad's Factory was a course that people have begged to see return since its original appearance in Mario Kart Wii, as it hasn't been included as a retro track in any game since. But at long last, it makes its grand return in Mario Kart World. And now after all these years, I've got it right where I want it, and yeah, it's good. Something about having it back in my hands after all this time has made me kind of come to terms with what I actually think of Toad's Factory. It's fun, but maybe not a top cut course. The track being the item box manufacturing plant is still cool. The conveyor belts are as fun as ever, but that layout is a lot more almost entirely just a square than I've ever given it credit for. It does cool things within that space. The swaying of the platforms and conveyors in this outdoor segment will always be fun. And in World's Redo, there are higher paths sprinkled along the course that offer a bit more, especially this rail grind path at the end along these girders. This rocks, but I don't know. I just don't find myself nearly as enamored with this course as I used to be. It's still pretty damn solid, but kind of like Faraway Oasis, I like everything this course does, but don't necessarily love any particular aspect. I'm glad they brought it back, I'm glad they did it justice, but I think it's fine if it doesn't come back again for a while after World. Dandelion Depths marks what I'd consider the next jump up in how much I like these courses. Everything from here on is something I wouldn't hesitate for a moment to pick if I'm playing online or just in the mood to screw around solo. Considering we're at 19, I think that's a testament to how good Mario Kart World's tracks are overall. Dandelion Depths takes place in a construction site that zooms down into a cavern full of cascading springs that you hop in and out of, leading to this really thrilling climb back up to the start with this hill coated in dash panels that kinda reminds me of Rock Mountain from Mario Kart 7. I really like how the pools of water are used in this course. Because most of your time in this part is spent splashing down into consecutive ponds, you get to trick as you pop back up and gain a lot of speed. And capping it off with that mad dash back to the start scratches my brain really well. I also love this wall riding path on your way down. Rewarding you for taking the effort with an item box and a dash panel is a great incentive, and getting the jump right feels damn good too. I also really enjoy how much this course in particular reminds me of the Wooded Kingdom from Odyssey, with all the red metallic structures of the construction site. That was one of my favorite kingdoms in that game, and Dandelion Depths definitely gets some points with me for that reason too. It's just a really fun drive with cool track design. It's hard for me to ask for too much more as a start to the great tracks of this game. I'm honestly pretty impressed by this one. I mean, Desert took a pretty middling DS track, somehow cut out the main identity of the course and left it still pretty middling. DK Pass, on the other hand, took a middling DS track and massively improved on it. The underlying layout isn't particularly different from DS, but so much has been added to the course that makes it a way more enjoyable drive. This course gets such a big boost from the mechanics World brings to the table. Being able to wall ride during this segment with the pine trees, rails providing some alternative ways to get a burst of speed, and one of my favorite little shortcuts in the game, the billboard jump near the start. So many little bonuses are snuck in throughout the track, and they all feel great to utilize. This track is also just way nicer aesthetically than it's ever been before. In DS and 7, DK Pass is a big pile of nothing the whole way through. It's snowy, you drive around a few windy roads, there's just not much to sink your teeth into. Plus, it really don't got much to do with the main man himself, DK. In World, it's very clearly been repurposed into a ski resort, with the Big Ape finally getting some iconography at the starting gate and other places on the course to actually show that it's his pass. Because truly, this could have been anybody's before. At any rate, DK Pass finally feels like they managed to make it work. I like the twisty path up to the top of the slalom. I really like how many fun options it has to traverse it. The whole thing is just vastly improved, and yet I think this still probably isn't near the best DK course in the series. I mean, hell, it's not even the best one in this game. It's big shoes to fill considering how many of the Big Monkeys courses are among the best in the series, but I'm glad it finally got to join the adults table. I thought it was kind of surprising when they unveiled the Switch 2 and Mario Kart World with it by showing off this Route 66-esque area. It definitely didn't look like somewhere you'd be starting a Mario Kart adventure, and yet, here we are. Kinda. They showed off the knockout tour part, not the... besides the point. Mario Bros. Circuit is a really good start to the Mushroom Cup, with a lot of mostly easy turns accompanied by plenty of rails that let you get a feel for the mechanic, while also offering plenty of skill expression as you get better at the game. The best example is definitely this glider segment, where you can get on this rail that can be changed into another rail and then this mushroom shortcut for good measure if you have one. It's such a rush nailing it. The big turn where you get a Rainbow Spark drift is fantastic. Feeling great both as a new player since that Rainbow Spark speed boost is so good, but also as a more experienced player trying to cut the turn as sharply as possible to gain an edge. The only real complaint I have is that the course is pretty damn easy, but at the same time it's kinda hard to hold that against the very first map that the game has. Can't really be starting with anything too complex if you want to ease people in. It's also still damn fun, so I can live with that. Oh yeah, and this track's music goes crazy. Fuck it up, harmonica. Hey, DK, I didn't expect to see you again so soon. DK Spaceport is a cool-ass concept for a Mario Kart track. What if you made a track based on the classic arcade game? That's an idea that has a ton of potential, and I think that it answers that question pretty well. It's a 6-segment track that sees you chasing after a Robo-DK at the top of the station, with each ramp of the track featuring a unique set of obstacles, ranging from girders to bounce between, a bunch of ramps that spit out barrels perpendicular to you, and a recreation of the barrel tossing from the arcade, just with an absolutely gargantuan set of barrels instead. The variety of challenges that the course has are brilliant. It's all in all just a blast to race on, and one that I always enjoy seeing pop up. Huh, I feel like something's wrong. Like someone was supposed to have shown up by now, but just didn't? What is it about Donkey Kong that— What? You can kill the park, but not the idea. Let's go with idea. SNES Koopa Troopa Beach is, for the most part, the baby park replacement of Mario Kart World. It's a big circle, it's got 5 laps, and not a lot more going on than that. You do have this water segment where you can either gun for the item boxes to get a bit of help, or keep tighter to the inside to drive more quickly around the circle, but by and large, it's maybe the most simple course in the entire game. Well, besides Pavement Purgatory, anyway. However, unlike that track, Koopa Troopa Beach does remember that in order for a track like this to be fun, it needs laps. This course kicks ass, dude. Taking tight turns, nailing your tricks off these small little bumps, holding a mushroom to blast through the grass right at the end. Oh, baby, it feels great. Plus, I'd be remiss to not mention this track's fantastic music. I honestly don't have many qualms with the course itself when it comes to Koopa Troopa Beach. After all, when it's not much more than a circle, it's hard to really find much to gripe about. But admittedly, that simplicity is what holds it back from going much higher for me. It's really fun, but I'm hard-pressed to say that it's super interesting overall, and everything ahead of it is just doing more to stand out than this course could realistically accomplish. It's exactly what it needs to be, and it's fantastic at being a baby park clone, but I just can't justify this one going much higher. It's been a hot minute since we talked shop on Wario Shipyard, but we hadn't gotten to its namesake's other course yet, and for good reason. Wario Stadium and World is pretty damn sick. Not in 64 though. In 64, it's just sickly. There's no two ways about it for me. It's way too goddamn long, boring, and Wario's narcissism just disgusts me. Here though, damn. This is how you redo a retro track. The layout's been condensed, so the course actually takes a reasonable amount of time to drive through, and the amount of options you have at any given moment feels really good. There's plenty of opportunities to trick off ramps, ride along walls, or even climb the walls to rail grind to keep the speed going. The opening section where you have those 2 constructed hills demonstrates it really well, and it's not something that really stops being the case as the course goes on either. Experimentation in Stadium just feels great, and opens up a lot of possibilities to make up distance if you're farther back. Plus, I'm always a sucker for a big launchy set piece in a Mario Kart map, and this part near the end with the really sharp ramp up before getting dropped down to the last 2 turns to the lap is so cool. So with how positive I am about this course, why is it only at 14th? Well, for starters, competition is just really stiff in Mario Kart World, as I've expressed previously. Being at 14 for me isn't exactly damning when so much of what's left to talk about is as good as it is, so anything I don't like about a course going forward gets put under a bit more scrutiny. And in the case of Wario Stadium, I'm just not big on the visual design. Like, don't get me wrong, I understand that Wario would have the grungiest stadium of all time. Expecting something with more visual panache would be ridiculous, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna like looking at it all that much either. It's fine though. You could be a little ugly and still be the coolest dude of all time. Anyone who looks like Wario Stadium, keep your head up. We're really getting into the thick of it here. It's getting harder and harder for me to make calls on what should go where. And out of all of them, I think Boo Cinema is the one I've had the trickiest time placing somewhere. I had this as low as 17, as high as 9, and then decided to use my beautiful math degree, not a joke, to make the only logical call. Average it out and just throw it here. 4 years well spent. This course is rad. A haunted movie theater is a phenomenal concept for a course, made all the better by the part where you drive into the projection screen to ride on film reels while boos make their presence known all over the place. It just feels cool to drive around on, with fun turns, tight spaces where things can get really hectic, and in a pretty interesting twist for how I've handled a lot of racetracks to this point, it's doing well despite not taking great advantage of any new mechanics. Like, yes, there are opportunities for rails and wall rides, but they don't really feel beneficial to the actual races on Boo Cinema for the most part, except for this very last rail before the finish line. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure in a regular race there are some applications, but it just doesn't have that same weight as a lot of other tracks do. The fact that everyone's on the road the whole time also makes for some of the crazier races I've had playing this game. Something about the film reel part of the course leads to a frenzy of items, and I've had plenty of opportunities to go from 2nd to 13th in a heartbeat. But even that doesn't really feel bad since the item boxes are so plentiful that you really never feel like you're out of contention on this course. It's just really good from top to bottom, and one I'll be happy to see pop up for a long time to come. Salty Salty Speedway is a course that I had at 22 at the start, because as another water-heavy course, I was like, man, this is slow, blah, 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 but then I realized this course was begging me to lock in and actually play the track optimally to avoid the water, and it made me feel like a stooge. I mean, I am, but this is the course that most made me feel like a dumbass in the game, so props to it for that one. The main pathway is heavily dominated by canals and the ocean, save for this one segment where you drive further into the city for a little bit, but along pretty much every stretch of water, there's some sort of roads, rails, or walls that are a little trickier to either get onto or stay on than just sailing along. The water isn't wavy like in Shipyard either, so you also have much less opportunity to do tricks to gain more speed, further rewarding you for keeping out of it as much as possible. This track design is awesome. I love how engaging this course is for almost the entire stretch. Jump up here, jump over there, ride this wall, go gliding past so much of the lower pathway. It feels great to play once you get it. The only real nitpick I have is I'd like there to be a little more in terms of options on the last stretch of the track in the ocean. It pretty much boils down to there being a thin mushroom shortcut or a pretty standard turn, but that's not exactly a big deal. It mostly just feels out of place here because the entire rest of Salty Salty Speedway is teeming with options for the player, but considering this is pretty standard Mario Kart fare, I don't hold it against this course much. Despite the name, I ain't salty. Over here, there ain't nothing but joy. I think it's a pretty common take that the SNES Mario Circuit tracks, in most of their appearances, aren't very popular. Barring maybe Mario Circuit 3 and Wii, I can't think of many instances where these rides end up being courses that people are glad came back. They're usually kind of middling, uninspired tracks without much of interest to highlight. I mean, for Christ's sake, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe uses the pipes on Mario Circuit 3 as the big element to note. It's bleak. And yet, lo and behold, SNES Mario Circuit was announced for World all the same. This wasn't one I really saw anyone happy about prior to launch, and you can definitely include me among the, oh god, please, why did it have to be SNES Mario Circuit crowd? After booting the game up and playing through the course myself, I came to a startling realization. I actually really like this course. This is a mashup of Mario Circuits 1, 2, and 3 from Super Mario Kart, and that right there is what I think makes this all hum. The fact that you're not running through the same Mario Circuit multiple times in a row, and instead it kind of feels like one big mega course, does so much to make this track more enjoyable. The three much simpler racetracks all blend together into this super satisfying map, and everything just fires on all cylinders the entire time. World's new mechanics don't really do too much for this track, since it is Mario Circuit, it's pretty flat, but I do want to call attention to this Yoshi food bag they added as you get into Mario Circuit 3. Obviously you can use it wherever if you want to pick it up, but that speed boost also presents a way to reliably do the shortcut near the end of the track if you manage to keep it up until that point. And considering by that point someone is probably either holding a lightning or you just lose it in some other way, it adds a really cool risk-reward element of when to use it right at the end. This was maybe my biggest pleasant surprise out of the entire roster of maps. Taking the off-maligned inclusion of SNES Mario Circuit to making it into something this damn fun is all I could really ask for. Awesome course. This is absolutely the blueprint for how these SNES tracks should come back from now on. We're finally cracking the top 10, and to kick it off, Bowser's Castle. And what a spectacle this course is. The beginning of this course is pretty standard, driving through this diamond, do a couple of turns around some fireballs, but once you get to the glider up to the skies, god damn does it go hard. Both in the figurative and literal sense kinda. I mean, look at this place. The intense dark skies, the ride through the Bowser statue built into an active volcano, gliding around an active meteor shower. It's an absolutely incredible view. It's also kinda tough as hell. Not so much the regular route, although this one turn in particular is a little tight, I guess, but I think this course has some absolutely insane shroomless shortcuts that you can pull off, and those right there add a lot of difficulty. Learning how to execute those effectively is huge and can really change change the complexion of a race if you're good at them, even if they're also a little goofy. I adore how this course feels, but I will say, this Bowser's Castle does kind of feel weird to be a Bowser's Castle. Like, yes, of course, there's the big-ass Bowser statue, it's hard to not call it a Bowser track, but for a castle, there sure isn't much actual building going on. We get a little bit right at the start, but most of what's happening here is in the skies above and around the volcano, not really the castle itself. It feels out of place in that regard, and ties into something about World's entire roster of courses that I find a bit strange. There's a distinct lack of indoor tracks in this game. Of the 30-ish main courses, only about 4 or so do you really spend much time inside racing. And I get it, you've got this big open world to play around with, but a place like Bowser's Castle gives you a golden opportunity to go ham on some indoor racing architecture, as evidenced by plenty of previous outings. But they didn't. I wouldn't want to lose this course, but it also makes me think about what else could have been in a weird way. Like, don't misunderstand me, this is absolutely incredible. It deserves to be a 10, I think. But I didn't have anywhere else to stick that tangent, and I figured now was as good a chance I was gonna get to explain why it's a little lower on the list. Don't like that? I do blame you, actually. That isn't stupid. The last of what I'd consider the big water courses, Cheep Cheep Falls is just awesome, man. In this map, you first start by racing past a couple of pagodas before taking a sweeping turn under a waterfall, and then the best water section out of any course. The rest of the course is spent going downstream, and God, I love it. The deep waters in the middle are peppered with branches to jump off of for some extra speed, the outsides of the course are shallow and allow for more comfortable methods of drifting, and there's a couple of good mushroom cuts on the ride down the river that just make it all gel together into this wonderful adventure. It feels exceptionally well balanced, made all the better by the game still requiring you to stay on top of things. Since drifting in water is an entirely different beast to land, you have to be careful on these curves with where you're going lest you end up changing what terrain you're drifting through on accident hitting a wall. This is everything I've wanted a water course to be in this game. Salty Salty Speedway made avoiding the water feel great, but Cheep Cheep Falls makes this river into a truly amazing main event. I'm also just a big fan of this course visually. Fall is my absolute favorite season. I love the crispness of the air cooling down, the leaves changing colors, the perfect sweater weather, it's great. This course bursting at the seams with vibrant oranges and falling leaves just makes me extremely happy to see. No other map in the entire game even exists in this same biome, so Cheep Cheep Falls also gets to benefit in my ranking from it standing alone as being the autumn track. The other elements are also obviously very pretty and do a good job complementing the heavy use of oranges, like the white sand at the beginning of the race and the really pleasant green of the pagodas. If this is what a Cheep Cheep course can be when it's not flopping around on a beach, please let the fish cook a little harder going forward. Not like that! Ah, no, she's back! Wait, false alarm, everybody. With as long as it's been since we first brought up Peach Stadium, I forgot there was a fantastic version of this course too. This feels like it was plucked right out of Mario Kart 8 with how crazy some of the slopes that you drive on can get. And in general, the track design is damn good. You'll begin by snaking up this extremely steep road, and this turn in particular with the alternating dash pads is one of the most satisfying in the entire game to hit perfectly. Afterwards, it's a quick skip and a jump across some floating platforms before getting to the spiral turn that has a great feeling drift to it, and then it's all topped off by dodging a few random-ass Mario Circuit 3 pipes and making one last turn towards the finish line. As I alluded to a couple times, the big thing with Peach Stadium for me is how satisfying it is to drive on it. That might sound silly. In a racing game, you'd ideally hope you're saying that about courses before you hit 8th place, but I mean it more in the sense that tight execution here is more intrinsically rewarding to my dumb amphibian mind than most other places in the game. It's that damn dash panel turn, man. Hitting those right two in a drift, releasing the mini turbo, and then chaining it into a drift across the next couple goes absolutely bonkers. It's hard not to love the course when it's doing something like that, and then you add on that drift near the end that you could take super tight, and damn! Gushing aside, these random pipes right at the end don't really do much for me. I'm not sure why they felt like this was the way to add something of interest to the ending stretch of the race, because, no. It's just a static wall in the middle of the course and doesn't fit with the rest of what's going on here at all for me. Give me something dynamic, like a chain chomp or womps or something. I can't sit here in good confidence and pretend it changes my opinion of the course too sharply, but I feel like you could do a lot better than these Mario Circuit-ass pipes. We're in the Special Cup, for goodness sake. I think we could ditch the lame-ass pipes by now. Oh, you've gotta be kidding me. Acorn Heights really caught me off guard. When I first saw it in the Special Cup, it seemed kinda thrown in here compared to the others, and I assumed it was gonna be a much more lax forest track, and then I played it. This place is insane. The beginning is kinda par for the course for World. It's a climb up this big ass tree stump as you head towards a glider section, but from there, look at all these leaves and vines you can ride on, dude. The rest of this course is just oozing with options until the finish line, with rails, walls, dash panels, and different elevations all offering unique choices with their own merits. And oh my goodness gracious, this is wonderful. Very few courses in the entire game stack up to the number of options that Acorn Heights gives you, and a fair number of these options also provide you with branching routes that let you bridge into each other, and oh dude, this place just feels great. The other nice thing about this course is just how competitive it ends up feeling. Because there's just so many options while driving, it feels like no matter what decisions you make, as long as you're not making massive mistakes, it's anyone's game. It's a great course through and through, with one annoying asterisk for me. I feel like damn near every time I play this course, I end up getting hit with something during this glider segment. And like, yeah, if you have an item to protect you, that's fine, but that isn't always the case, and they also present you with an item box at the glider. So if you're banking on those to help you and get hit right before the roulette stops spinning, you just lost out on that entirely, which never really feels great. It's frankly a pretty minor nitpick, bordering on a skill issue, and considering how great this course is otherwise, I don't think it matters all too much. This is my kind of race through and through. Way earlier on in this video, I mentioned that I was a Double Dash kid, and while I wouldn't mind going back to discuss the older games someday, let me just tell you now that my favorite course in that game was Daisy Cruiser, but Dino Jungle was pretty good too. Now that it's in Mario Kart World though, I feel like it's gotten a completely new lease on life. The course has gone from being some random jungle with a couple of dinosaurs just vibing in this one spot to a full-on Jurassic Park style expedition. It ditches the Noshis from prior versions and instead provides a smattering of different dinosaurs like T-Rexes, Brachiosauruses, or the Triceratops that appear at the start of the first lap. From there, you make your way into the new laboratory, which offers you 3 routes to get through it: a standard one, a higher ledge that demands you jump off this rail at the start, and this mushroom shortcut, closing off with a ledge jump and a turn back towards the starting line. All of these changes add so much to the track. The dinosaurs change location throughout the duration of the race, with the first lap having the Triceratops I mentioned before, the second introducing the Brachiosaurus, and the T-Rex breaking out of containment at the end of that lap and becoming the primary dino obstacle of the third. Even if you generally know what to expect going in, it does a great job of demanding attention out of you so you can effectively dodge or in some cases use the dinosaurs on each lap. The laboratory that replaces the original cave also rules. That higher route offers an extra item box at the cost of a slight bit of time, and the mushroom cut is a pretty lengthy patch of grass and can sometimes have the dinosaurs guarding it. So while it is a huge time saver, it's not the freest shortcut in the game either. It's a great medley of options with a good risk-reward element to all of them, incentivizing on-the-fly thinking really well. All of these adjustments to Dino Jungle coalesce into the best version of this course easily. It's one of the best retro tracks in the entire game, maybe even the series. However, it's not the best one in World. We'll get there. Out of every course I saw material of before launch, it was Great Question Block Ruins that caught my attention the hardest. This shot in the first trailer of everyone driving up to this big, dilapidated block high in the sky was just so mesmerizing. And now that I've gotten to play it as much as I have, I can safely say that is like the least interesting part of the track, funnily enough. I mean, there's a couple other things here, but like, don't take that as a bad thing. The map is brilliant all the way through. It starts with that drive through the Great Question Block, and then sees you descend through these golden ruins before hopping off a cloud. And from here, much like most of World's finest, you have an unbelievable amount of choices in terms of routing. You get so many options. Bouncing on clouds and higher platforms, taking the rails below, or just following the simplest path forward, which in itself still offers you several different choices going forward, including this iconic big-ass shortcut that I am so bad at. It all caps off with one final turn into a glider segment, allowing you to get one last look at the absolutely gorgeous sky ruins that surround you before the next lap starts the journey all over again. Great Question Block Ruins is such a stellar course, there's just so much about it to love. The entire thing is the most adventurous feeling course that the game has, with the latter half giving you so many opportunities to experiment and see what's possible to pull off. I can't stress enough just how good of a feeling pulling off that dang ring jump shortcut is, and while nothing is inherently as massive of a time saver on this map, it's still fun seeing what works here. Outstanding course, and yet even with as good as it is, it only barely cracked the top 5 for me. It really can't be understated how good World's Best tracks are. Crazy to think this is the same game with pathetic parking. One last retro course for the road, and honestly, I'm not particularly shocked to see that Airship Fortress stands at the top of that mountain. Partially because for a while it was going up against Moo Moo Meadows and shit, but also because Airship Fortress just rocks. Take what a lot of people already consider one of, if not the best course from DS, don't fiddle with it too hard besides incorporating some really fun rail grinding sections, and damn, what do you know? Storming one of Bowser's airships and then flying down a big tower still remains an excellent map. And I mean, that's basically the whole rundown of the track. Zoom along a bridge to the airship, drive around a bit topside while dodging rocky wrenches before heading down into the belly of the beast. Then at that point you grind across some rails underneath moving burners and shoot off to the top of a tower, hit the mother of all drifts, and then return back to the beginning. This layout is so damn fun, and World's additions of several grindable rails do a great job of adding new elements to the course that feel like they could have always been there. The ones underneath the burners especially. Despite being short, they present a great chance to bounce between them to dodge the flames while still getting a trick off, gaining a ton of speed as you head into the cannon. The literal only downside of this version in my eyes is that they removed the breakable boxes in the lower deck of the ship, which weren't super hard to avoid or anything, but I think you probably could have afforded to keep them around for just a little bit of extra challenge. Even without them though, this is still Airship Fortress at its best in basically every regard in my eyes. Incredible visuals, incredible racing, and incredible music. It's just a keeper, man. I am so happy that it's made its way to a home console in this state. This is one of the best retro tracks in the entire series. The top 3 were really hard to sort out in my mind. Frankly, any one of these might end up being my top pick down the road as we, get a little further away from the release of the game. But from here on out, we're easily talking top 10 courses in the history of the entire series for me. I love all of these to death, but I gotta put them in some order. And so at 3rd place, we have Rainbow Road. I mean, damn, it's incredible, top to bottom. This Goliath 4-section track is the longest in series history, starting with pretty normal Rainbow Road fare before you get sent into this absolutely ethereal river ride into a noticeably not Rainbow Road. That bitch is blue. Then up to this eye-popping space station that features a little bit of anti-gravity, and finally capping it off with this incredibly triumphant feeling finale. It is such a rush, and despite the length of the course being 4 to 5 minutes, you never feel it because there's just so much to take in during the race. For example, you get accompanied by this train with elements from the other courses throughout the game, such as the Dino Jungle T-Rex, the Robo DK from DK Spaceport, or this mini replica of Airship Fortress. It really helps to bring together this idea that you've been on this crazy world tour to get to this moment, and it pops up a few times throughout the race, so you really get to feel like you're being accompanied by everyone you've met along the way. There's also the matter of this entire course being drop-dead gorgeous. You can tell that there was a strong passion at play here, with the crystalline stained glass-esque look of the road, the gold accents and infrastructure, the river section that takes the best looking part of Starview Peak and adds an entire otherworldly environment around it, and oh man, the space station. This thing is a marvel of a design and outcharms the Mario Kart 8 version massively with its brilliant use of color and frankly better usage of anti-gravity, but shh. Each section of the track also has its own music that plays, and they're all wonderful pieces that complement each other so well that it never even really occurred to me mid-race that they're not all one song. It is such a vibrant, incredible experience from start to end, but admittedly not my favorite Rainbow Road. I think this one is probably second out of all of them right now, if I have to decide, and that's part of why I have this at 3rd place instead of 1 or 2 right now, but damn man, it's pretty close. I'm beyond happy with this as the capstone of Mario Kart World's course selection for now. If this is where I go when I die, then I can't wait to keel over. Man, dude, Drybones had the turnaround of the century for Mario Kart 8 to World when it comes to having a track themed after him. Bone Dry Dunes is such a blasé, unenjoyable track in that game. You really hate to see the poor dude have to be associated with it for how boring it is. Conversely, Dry Bones Burnout is about as good of a redemption story as you could hope to have. This course has literally everything I love about Mario Kart World: great rail grinding, great routing variety, a cool layout in general, all topped off with one of my favorite songs in this game's soundtrack and some super charming use of Day of the Dead imagery. I love this section right past the starting turn, where you get to choose between a couple of roads that lead you to a glider that takes you to the top of this really big dry bone skull. First off, just gliding over here is metal as hell. Like, look at this, what a shot. Second off, riding along these remains offers so many damn good choices, with 2 separate normal roads, multiple rails, and all kinds of possibilities for time saves. And it's not just the top path being so good that I love. There's a secondary glide through the skull's mouth that you generally have to get knocked off the top path to get to, and it leads you to a completely different route underneath. And this route has its own merits, especially if you have the shrooms to skip big chunks of it, but you don't even have to stay down here, because there's ropes to grind on that take you back up to the top instead. It all melds together wonderfully, creating this unbelievably amazing section with so many variables at play. More than Wario Stadium, more than Acorn Heights, this course is my favorite in terms of fun options to drive through. I really can't stress enough just how perfect it feels to cruise around. There's so many ways to get through the course, and genuinely all of them feel so good. It opens up all sorts of chances for clutch moments that most courses in this game just can't compete with. I honestly believe this is a perfect Mario Kart track. I can't think of a single thing I don't absolutely love about Dry Bones Burnout. Top to bottom, it does so much right at every turn, both in a figurative and literal sense, that I'm fully content putting this at number 1. Except for the fact that I didn't. Because as it turns out, just this once, perfection can be topped. We've come a long way to reach this summit, haven't we? We started with some rough stops in the road, but Mario Kart World really does have some fantastic, wonderful, exuberant courses that just keep drawing me in. We'll see where I'm at with this game in a year's time or even beyond, but for the moment, I love this game. And I love so many of these tracks. We're at the finish line of this journey, so let's blow the whistle and see who ended up at the front of the pack. I don't think I would have guessed for a moment that this would end up being number 1 before getting my hands on the game. A Mushroom Cup track? Really? Whistle Stop Summit, over the likes of Rainbow Road? Airship Fortress? Tarmac Turmoil? Hey, nobody can say my opinions are unoriginal at least. I just can't imagine a lot of other people are saying this is their favorite course. But it's true. Whistle Stop Summit is a ride through a whistle stop town, racing alongside a train up through the nearby mountain before making your way through the fields of coal in the back end of the village that loop back to the starting train station. When I put it like that, it sounds kinda simple, and I guess it kinda is really, but here's where one big thing comes into play. A train doesn't go anywhere without its tracks. So much of this course's DNA is in rail grinding, and makes for the most fantastically exhilarating, enchanting, rewarding course in the entire game for me. You just get to bounce and bounce and bounce around all of the guardrails and tracks that the course has, and seeing as the train is taking the same route you are, the option is omnipresent, leading to so many times where you'll have the option to pick up some coins at insane speed by hopping on, but also still not universally being the correct option. This bend inside the mountain is way faster to take by drifting tight and inside instead of building up a spark on the outside. On the way downhill, it's abundantly slower to just hug the rail, but the game also presents you with multiple opportunities to hop onto other rails that surround the main road to either jump onto this billboard or the train track architecture to get up on top of the buildings. Or you can go after this one on the left, hop off of it onto another rail, and skip needing a mushroom to take this shortcut. It's such an immense pleasure getting to see all the ways you can make things work on Whistle Stop Summit. These courses that show you an easy enough to understand basic route, but dangle all of these carrots in front of you to say, hey, if you're willing to try, you're getting a huge prize, have done well with me over and over again. But there's just something about Whistle Stop in particular that's clicked the absolute hardest for me. I love just how high the ceiling feels on this course, with so much room to just absolutely obliterate the competition if you have the savvy to pull it all off. There's also, of course, the theming of the track that I talked about before, and that's yet another aspect that I find deeply charismatic. I'm not about to tell you that I myself am some super big train guy. It was more my dad's thing than myself, but man, I really love this setting. You only really get to see the train station part of the town for the most part during the race itself, but the Western Americana of the entire area, the super sick mountain that resembles a steam train, the rickety aged feeling of much of the construction complemented by the weathering on the metal to show how well used the railroad's been. It's like somewhere you would have stopped for all of an hour or two on a vacation when you were little, and you just got so engrossed by everything you were seeing you wished you could have spent the week there instead. The whole place from top to bottom is just so delightful, and the music, oh my goodness! I could keep going on and on, but I don't want to lay it on my favorite course too much harder than I already have. This course has had a stranglehold on me since launch day. It's just so fun, dude. I love it to death. And while I'm not sure I'm quite ready to call it my favorite course in the entire series just yet, damn is it close. An absolutely excellent bookend to the ranking, and one that I can't wait to race on for years to come. And that's that. This is, by far, the longest video I'll have ever put together. And while I can't say how long that'll last, I can't say that I regret making it. I know I was pretty whiny at the start of all this, but even with the few bad to mediocre courses the game has, there's just so many great ones in here to fall in love with. It makes the few bad apples that there are easy to accept. I love how the racing feels. I love screwing around in the open world. I really love this character selection. It's not a perfect game, and I think it's fair to argue about the merits that something like 8 Deluxe plus the Booster Pass has over World, but it does so much right on its own terms that I can't say I'm upset with what we got here. At all. Plus, it made me fall in love with Coin Coffer, something I never would have thought possible 6 months ago, but damn it, I'd take a bullet for this sort of frog money purse homunculus thing. Let me know if this style of video is something you want to see again, by the way. It'll probably be with something much quicker to go over instead. This ballooned into a much bigger project than I expected, but I do really want to know if this was something people liked enough to see again. For now, though, I'm gonna go take a somewhat well-deserved victory lap. Well, Hyder, this was a blast, but, do you want to go play more Mario Kart? What the hell, the power's out again? That's the 4th time this week. Guess we can pop down to the beach and play it there for now. With any luck, it'll be on again soon. Hyder, why do you even have smart steering on? I know you don't need it. Tactical advantage? Really? Do you really think that you need that to be... Hey, do you hear that? The power must be back on at the house. And whatever you did fixed it, the alarm's finally going off again. Oh, but doesn't that mean something's coming? Alright, what's it gonna be this time? A random-ass PS3 game? A couple planks of wood? Burger, maybe? Oh god, I could really go for a new sweater vest. You already know chicks dig the vest, Hyder.
I'm spot.
Oh hey, there it is! Better watch out, little buddy. It's probably nothing massive, but actually it kinda does look massive. What the heck is that? Ow! What on earth could this possibly... Hyder, whatever this is, it's alive.
In the window, Jeep.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Its feet are kicking at least. Oh, wow, okay, I'm gonna pull it out of the sand, okay? Step back, just in case. We don't know what this thing could do. Alright, you ready? 1, 2, 3! Whoa! Yeah, I'm good, Hyder. Thank you. Now then, what do we have here? What?